region. Joining me now to discuss Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and former U.S. Treasury terror finance analyst, Jonathan Schanzer. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is what President Trump said this week about retaliation on ISIS before those strikes.
This had nothing to do with the Syrian government. This had to do with ISIS.
What will be the response be?
As a response, they'll be hit hard.
Do you think that this strike weakened ISIS in Syria, and could more strikes be coming?
Well, look, I think we got a couple of problems here. Number one is a resurgence of ISIS, and it's not just in Syria, it's around the world. I mean, that attack in Sydney just a few days ago was ISIS. We've broken up plots here in the United States. So we've got a broader problem of ISIS and its resurgence. Then inside Syria, you've got a separate problem, which is that the government under Ahmed al-Shara, the new president, who's been in power for about a year, he pretty much only controls the capital of Syria, Damascus. Everything outside of Damascus is kind of just no man's land right now, and that's allowing groups like ISIS to gain control and to be able to perpetrate that violence. I think we're doing the government of Syria a favor by taking out dozens of ISIS targets. We're probably helping to restore some order, but I would say that the threat remains both in Syria and elsewhere around the world.
So are U.S. forces in Syria right now and the Mideast in general facing a heightened threat environment following these strikes? Do they need to be concerned?
Look, I think they need to be concerned because ISIS remains a persistent threat. By the way, so does the Iranian threat. All those Shiite militias that are operating in places like Syria and Iraq, those are still too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned to U.S. bases. But I think those bases are well protected. It's when you see them, when you see personnel leaving those bases and going out in the open, I think that's where the real threat can be seen. And that's obviously how we saw, 3 Americans killed in the line of duty just a few days ago.
Secretary Hegseth is calling this a declaration of vengeance, not a declaration of war. Are we splitting hairs here? What is the difference?
Well, I think the question is whether the United States is committed to some kind of long-term campaign in Syria or in the Middle East. And that, of course, is something that the United States government, this administration in particular, is loath to do. You don't see a Pentagon looking to mount a new large-scale campaign. This goes against the sort of America First, MAGA foreign policy principles that Donald Trump has been hammering home both in his first term and his second. So I don't see a big war breaking out. But I would say this, if ISIS continues to carry out attacks, we're going to have very little choice but to respond. And again, I'm concerned really about that global presence of the Islamic State. It wasn't too long ago that we declared ISIS completely defeated, and now we see them attacking or trying to attack us here at home in the United States, Poland, Canada, Australia, and of course, still in the Middle East. There's a significant presence in Africa. I'm looking at a resurgent jihadi group. That concerns me because, I think everybody would like to put that so-called war on terror in the rear view. I think the facts are showing a very different problem, and at some point, we may have to come to terms with that.
Okay. Turning now to Ukraine. This is what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said yesterday about the idea that the U.S. is forcing Ukraine into a deal.
This whole narrative that we're trying to force something on Ukraine is silly. We can't force it. There's no peace deal that Ukraine, there is no peace deal unless Ukraine agrees to it. But there's also no peace deal unless Russia agrees to it. We are just trying to find whether there's common ground that we can make happen. And maybe that's not possible. Maybe it is.
So President Zelensky signaled that he is willing to drop Ukraine's NATO bid. Why is this such an important point for Putin in attempting to reach a ceasefire?
Look, Putin wants to undermine NATO. He wants to divide Europe. He wants to sow chaos. And he's done a pretty good job of it up until now. I think the real question here is whether we're going to try to force the Ukrainians to cede territory that they've lost, force them to accept, to kind of take that bitter pill. I'm very concerned about that because I think it does send the wrong message to the Russians. I think it sends the wrong message to the Chinese who are watching this, right? When you say, all right, you're our ally and you've lost territory, so just suck it up and move on. that is not going to deter future attacks. It's probably going to embolden them. And not just, of course, the Chinese, but others as well. I'm looking at the Iranians, the North Koreans. They're watching right now and trying to figure out what we're willing to live with in a bid to bring calm to this region. I think that's the concern here. But I think that Secretary Rubio is right. You can't force either side. What you can try to do is to offer solutions that both sides may be willing to accept if they've bloodied themselves enough over the course of this war.
All right. Former U.S. Treasury terror finance analyst Jonathan Schanzer, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.